sights now. Come on, baby. Scroll up, scroll down. Yeah, I think this might sound. Now that we have finished, let's file and search now. Good thing you called on.
All right, welcome to this episode of the Justice Team podcast. That was my song. I don't know if Dan and Christa knew that, but I recorded
heavily
that.
synthesized.
Yeah, that was Law in Motion.
Kind of like Drake.
Yeah.
Everyone knows Drake can't sing, right? Is that like a secret?
I think he can sing pretty well. Today's episode, we're talking about the new lawyer life. And when I say new lawyer life, we're not talking about people straight out of law school and how they're going to practice fresh out of law school and fresh into the practice. We're talking about how lawyers' lives have changed in the past couple of years, specifically the past year with COVID, and how we sort of adapted.
So now we're like, what, a year and a couple months post, like when the shutdown happened. For me, this is the first time I put on actual clothing in a year and a half. It's usually board shorts and flip-flops every single day.
You still have board shorts and flip-flops on, though.
Well, not right this present, but yeah, they're in the car. I'm changing as soon as we're done here.
So today we have Dan Schaar. Dan, say hello. Give a little introduction.
Good morning, guys. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Dan, tell us a little bit. You're up in the Bay Area, right?
Yeah, I'm in Santa Cruz. I'm actually in my home office, aka my attic.
Is that real behind you, or do you just have a blur?
Oh yeah, dude. I got my background here. I got my firefall photo that I took at Yosemite a year ago, and right before shutdown. And then, but yeah, I'm in Santa Cruz, and we moved to Santa Cruz from San Jose mid-pandemic, August, and 3 blocks from the beach. You know, it fits really well into what we're going to be talking about today, the new lawyer lifestyle, and I can completely relate with the board shorts and flip flops. So
Dan, you are a real trial attorney. You try cases.
I do.
What about your firm, Schaar and Silva?
I do. So yeah. So I try cases. I run with my partner Eva Silva. We run our own firm, Schaar and Silva. We're actually based in Campbell, which is basically San Jose. But we try cases all over the state, and I also do some work with CZR and Trial Lawyers for Justice. So I'll handle cases, and we just finished up a case in Oregon.
Our non-legal listeners, well, people that are just tuning in that aren't lawyers, when Dan says he's a trial lawyer, and Chris is a trial lawyer too, and I'm not really a trial lawyer. I just do mostly litigation. But trial lawyer is something that you see people advertise on billboards, and they usually originate cases, and they can do a very good job of trying to settle them. But when they need lawsuits, get into litigation, they refer them to a handful of firms in California. But then when you actually get to the trial, there's only a certain couple people at firms that do the trials throughout the states of California. We have 2 on this panel right today. So that's when we say trial lawyer. That means a specific thing. They actually go into the courtroom and ask the jury to help the client.
And Dan, you've been, I don't know how long you've been practicing. You don't look like you're that old. But you've had
some gray in that.
Yeah,
beard.
Dude, there's lots of gray in the beard.
You've had quite a lot of success in your career, multiple 7-figure verdicts. You're out there actually doing the work, and so it's been a little different for you specifically in the past year without trials. Let's get
to Christa, and we'll come back to what's been keeping you busy when you're not in trial.
So Christa is, I would say she's probably a legendary consumer advocate, in Los Angeles area. So Christa, tell us a little bit about yourself. You and your husband have your own practice.
Yeah.
You've been doing it for a long time. You've been doing it with some.
Usually we do these things in person, and this is one of the podcasts used to be in person. We had to pivot for COVID, and I would have loved to have Christa specifically here because we could make a mean morning drink. We could sit down and just shoot the shit and have fun, but it's a little different distance, but we'll make it work.
Well, Brad, I was actually wondering if I should have brought a breakfast beer here. I didn't know if that was appropriate or not, but I'm sitting at my bar, home office.
Say breakfast beer, just say breakfast. It's just breakfast.
Exactly. Yeah, so I've been practicing law for about 20 plus years. Have practiced with my husband, who's a former defense attorney, converted him. And happy wife, happy life. So we've partnered up now, and it's good. I actually love working with my husband. I know you do that as well, not with your husband, Brad. your wife.
Together since they were in the womb. I mean, they're technically married.
Oh, yeah. Bob and I have been practicing since birth. So
there you go. I think working with family is amazing because you have a common objective, right? Like,
yeah, and if it fails, the whole family is going down. So
right.
No pressure.
Like it's like mountain climbers. When one falls, we all fall.
Same rope. So
I know, right?
hopefully Bob gets his drinking under control and we'll be good to go.
So Chris has actually done a lot of on TV, a lot of court TV appearances. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that experience and how that has changed and evolved during COVID?
I actually haven't tried a case in 2 years. I just figured it out. It had been like 6 months before COVID when I tried my last case. So, you've got to be out there doing stuff and getting your face out there. And so I kind of stumbled into it and talking about the civil justice issues evolving around Black Lives Matter and the George Floyd trial. I was a regular legal analyst during that trial. Started talking about the Durst trial yesterday on TV. It's kind of fun. It's but it puts your name out there in a different way and gives you credibility in a different way. So I've enjoyed it. Since I'm not in courtroom, I gotta find ways to hustle, right?
Yeah. So Christa, I mean, what other than, obviously COVID hit the past year, we've had to change the way we practice pretty much overnight, but over the past probably 3 or 4 years, at least for our firm, there was already sort of a shift in how law was being practiced and, using trial technology and using case management software. So tell us, not just COVID, but how has your practice and the way that you've litigated and tried cases, how has everything sort of changed as a new lawyer? Because you've been doing it longer than we have, and you've lived through probably a different time where things were done differently, and you've probably seen a bit of a transition in the last recent years. So how has things changed for us lawyers nowadays?
Well, man, when I first started practicing law, I mean, we'd have files that were just like, massive, red wells full of paper after paper, depots, and, you had to bring boxes into court when you went to trial. And we started pivoting way before COVID. And I know that, a lot of younger lawyers did. It was a little bit more difficult of a transition for us who were used to all the paper. But online cloud-based case management software now. And so COVID was an easy pivot. One of our associates had a baby a couple years pre-COVID, and she started out back after maternity leave, partly from home and partly in the office, and gradually started increasing her time. But she was still working from home 2 days a week when the pandemic hit. And I was working from home 1 to 2 days a week. Like Dan, we just, right before COVID, we moved to the beach, and the beach is right there, like a block. And so morning walks with my dog, and it's all. I feel like there's just a certain calm when you're working from home sometimes that you don't get when you're in the office. But I miss the hustle of the office too, I have to admit.
So I think that is the new lawyer lifestyle. I mean, Dan's also at the beach. Brendan and I live pretty close to the beach, and we've seen the real estate residential market explode to highest prices I've ever seen, because I think people are pivoting from, we don't need office space anymore, but we need home office space. So that's kind of, we're in the middle of that. I know our law firm, like, we've been remote since the pandemic hit. Our employees have not even come back to the office. They can reserve time when they want to, but for the most part, I thought people were as productive or more productive from home when they're not. That commute just kills time. It kills time for anybody.
One of our paralegals moved back to Puerto Rico. What am I going to do? Make her move back? She's so productive. That's where she's from, she's.
Yeah, it's a good transition talking about working from home and everything, because you have, Brad and I have kids that are younger. You have kids that are younger. How old are yours now, Dan?
So my daughter's 4 and my son is 15 months. He was literally born 4 weeks to the day before shutdown. So he is.
You were planning on working from home anyway.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of wild. So, I took time off. I took the time off in February. Actually, it's funny. The day before he was born, I can actually remember sitting in a mediation. I represent a first generation Chinese immigrant family in a death case that actually is going to go to trial next month. And we were sitting in the mediation talking about Wuhan. And I was trying to actually learn about this village because they all grew up in Shanghai, and we were sitting talking about Wuhan. I was like, this is so crazy. Next day I go to the hospital, my son's born, and a month later it's like, holy shit, like, wow. I was planning to take time off. So the first couple of months weren't too terrible because it was all part of the plan. And then it was just like, we were sitting around and talking with my paralegal. It's like, oh yeah, I'll be back in the office in May. No big deal. Yeah, right.
Specific solutions that you have chosen to use, maybe pre-COVID, but definitely you were like, wow, COVID hit. Thankfully, I have this. Krista mentioned things were in the cloud. When you mentioned in the cloud, like most people know what that means, but specifically for legal solutions, what are you guys using for your office-based solutions since you don't need to go in the office? And what about document storage and how you share data with your employees that aren't in the office anymore?
We do everything. It's Firm Central that we use. It's Thomson Reuters product, so it interfaces with Westlaw, which we're for legal research. So that's good. But I like to have regular meetings, and I feel really offended when I hear those jokes about this could have been an email, because I miss the interaction of just jumping into someone's office and talking about a case or a plan or a strategy, so I kind of miss that face-to-face time. So we try to do a Zoom call every day just to kind of touch base and talk about our cases and our problems and our solutions to our problems.
What do you use for your video calls?
Zoom.
I think Zoom's the biggest player. We bounce between Zoom. We've got RingCentral.
Microsoft Teams is we use Microsoft Teams for a lot of our collaboration and everything. Dan, I mean, you both of you have rather small practices, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, for us, ours is sort of unique because we kind of use basically what Christa said. I'm 100% on board the Zoom stuff. I check in with my team twice a day. We do morning check-ins and afternoon check-ins, mainly because although we run a small practice, I just use the phrase. All of our cases are live. Like we don't have any cases just are in lulls. So and because we sort of run the sort of soup to nuts practice, I've got cases that are crashes a month ago, and I got cases that are going to trial next month. So we have everything. So the collaboration, the daily stuff has to happen because there could be a case changing event that occurs at 1:00 in the afternoon. So it gets on the calendar. So we do that. When I collaborate with CZR and TL4J, we're dealing with Litify and Google Drive and those types of things. So we do pull things in, but for the most part, we're Clio, Dropbox, Zoom. That's what we do.
Do you, I mean, I know we've been, obviously the first 2 months of COVID was just strange. I mean, I think everyone had a bit of a transition period, but Brad might say differently, but our firm, I think we figured it out, and we probably aren't going to go back to anywhere near what we were previously.
We have Justice HQ, which is a place where we can go and physically meet and collaborate and talk about cases. So I plan on doing that at least one day a week, going into one of the HQ offices and just, like Christa said, bouncing ideas around. And the things that you get from other lawyers are just invaluable that you're not going to get at home. But I'm way more productive on the tasks I need to do at home just because I don't need to get up and get in a car and do, shower, right? When's the last time you showered?
I showered this morning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Awkward.
No, I mean, I think it's, and you two can maybe speak to this, but I mean, I feel like our industry was behind the times for a little while. And I think causing everything to work remotely and being more efficient for me, and probably for Brad too, it has allowed me to have more time at home with my daughter, that's what I want to do. I mean, I like working, I like my job, but I mean, Christa and Dan, I'm sure you guys have figured out ways to be more efficient
Let's talk about just depositions. How have depositions changed during COVID? I mean, obviously no more in person. So Christa, how have you done those?
It's interesting. At the beginning of COVID, I don't know what y'all's experience were, but defense firms were really reluctant to do it. And, and I just pushed it. And, now they're kind of the new normal. I don't know that I want to go back. I love doing depots by Zoom, or, we use a company, Steno, that has a really great platform for uploading your exhibits and all of that. And unless you've got a big document intensive case where you need to be showing and marking up a lot of exhibits, I don't know why anyone would want to do them in person ever again. I mean, why am I going to sit in a car and drive to Santa Ana for, an hour each way to do a depot that takes 2 hours? It's, that's my day.
Do you think, well, I mean, I don't know that we're ever going to be officially done with COVID, but there's going to be some normalcy. Do you think it's ever going to go back? I know our side likes the remote video depositions. It's efficient for us. We're not traveling, but we're not billing hours. Do you think there's going to be a pushback once things start opening up to let's get back into person, let's get away from remote video depositions? I would hope not, but what do you think is going to happen?
Well, it's been codified. So we can say we're going to do it remotely. If they want to drive and make a court reporter show up, knock yourselves out. I'm going to be sitting on my bar.
Yeah, I know Bob sits in his whiskey den.
He did like two or three expert depositions yesterday and didn't leave his house. Dan, how about you? Do you like physically being in the room with your deponent, or are you cool with this new Zoom life?
The only depositions that I envision ever going back to in person are going to be with my client, and they're going to be somewhere where my client and I can sit on Zoom. I mean, I'm 100% on the same page as Christa, but I actually somewhat disagree about the documents. I actually love those even more, mainly because I have this case against a card room here in San Jose. And one of the issues is the assailant on video in the card room, and the defense didn't produce all the videos. Shocking. And they're going to try to get the case thrown out. Well, I'm sitting there with the PMQ who can tell me all the video stuff, and I'm literally got the map up and I'm drawing all the places that I want him to testify that the defendant is walking around the casino, and I'm just right there, yeah? And I'm circling. I have these fucking circles everywhere. Mark it as an exhibit, go. If I'm in person, guess what's happening? The defense attorney's like, oh, no, don't mark this. So I actually think that the document stuff, while I agree with Christa, sometimes you can just have all this stuff, Zoom allows you to get away with so much shit because these defense attorneys are just not paying attention. And it's just like, you do see what that guy just did, right? Your case is gone. Like, mark it as an exhibit. So, yeah.
Which court reporting agency? I know Christa mentioned Steno, and Steno's really, really cutting edge for that type of stuff. Who are you guys using?
We use Talty. They're a local, like, family-owned business. They're actually in San Jose. I have used them since day one of my my legal career, because they actually were right across the street from my office in San Jose. But Talty is great because they allow us to access other platforms. They've got some particular document share service that I just can't remember, because honestly, I just drop everything into the chat and have found that works just fine for me. And I've been really fortunate that aside from one case, I haven't gotten a ton of pushback from the defense. I know that it's been happening, and I've heard about it.
All right, so we had talking about pushback from defense firms. Like last week, one of the defense firms was saying, we need your client in person in our office. And I said, everything Christa said, it's codified, like why? And finally, I just said, hey, look, if you want them in your office, can you send over your insurance policy stating that if our client or one of our staff members gets COVID from your office, that they will be covered under your insurance, and send over your protocols and guidelines for keeping your office space safe and clean. So they backed down pretty quick that we're going to do that remotely. It's just, I do see the defense, like Brandon said, they're going to want to do that, but hopefully that the insurance carriers and the adjusters realize they're paying less in legal fees to have these people drive time to go take depositions that they can just bang out 4 in a day now.
Yeah. I mean, you know what, Brad? I'm pushing back on giving excuses. Well, why don't you want your client here? I don't want to go. I want to, what? I don't have to give you an excuse. I don't have to give you a reason. And so I'm I guess I'm just old and cranky. I'm just like, nah, I'm just not.
I definitely do agree with Dan, though. I mean, I actually met more clients the past year than I had the previous 2 or 3 years, just because it's so efficient. We could pop on Zoom. Yep. At first, it was really impersonal, but I feel like once you get used to it and get kind of acclimated to this world, I've actually been able to reach out and communicate with clients a lot easier. But I do agree that, mediations, being in there with the client, sometimes it may be necessary. Depositions with the client necessary. Doesn't mean you all need to be in the room together, but you and the client. Christa and Dan, you two are trial attorneys. You are in courtrooms. And obviously in COVID, Dan, you have one coming up.
We've got two. I've got one in Contra Costa and we've got one in Santa Clara. So the one in Contra Costa, we've already done the pre-trial conference with the judge. And she basically has explained how they're doing it in Contra Costa, which is kind of what we've heard everywhere, which is we're going to be in masks. And of course, this was before the CDC changed everything, but I still think the courtrooms are going to run the same type of mask protocol. And they're doing everything in mask. Once jury selection starts, it's going to be in sort of fits and spurts where you're going to have a certain number of jurors come in, do your thing, then they'll be cleared for cause, and this, that, or the other, and then you'll eventually just get to your point where you've got your 12 and your 1 or 2 alternates, and they'll fill the courtroom. Santa Clara County is almost the exact same way. They'll bring you in. One of the huge benefits that we're seeing is judges that would give you pushback on questionnaires before aren't. Like, everybody's letting questionnaires come in, which is great because they get it. And hopefully that's something that continues on past the COVID stuff. But, Santa Clara is the same way where, questionnaires are getting filled, you clear for hardships, and then you do 20 at a time. And then they're spaced out. You've got like 2 or 3 jurors in the box, and then everybody's spaced out. And that's the way it's going to happen. We're not doing cases up here in gymnasiums like I know they're doing in Washington and Oregon and other places, but they're getting it done. And the hope is that we just don't get jammed up behind the criminal case backlog. That's the biggest issue up here in Northern California, is that we run into a lot of backlogs in the counties because Santa Cruz does the same thing. Criminal cases go first, civil cases go next. If all the courtrooms are gone with criminal, sorry, civil gets kicked. So that's my only concern, is that we're going to run out of courtrooms.
I assume you haven't been able to try a case since lockdown, right?
Yeah, I actually finished up. I tried a case with my partner Brian Ward in Santa Barbara that actually finished up 2 weeks before my son was born. So that was the end of January last year. So I had 1 or 2 arbitrations via Zoom, but I'm going to hopefully get some focus groups in so I can knock the rust off before I have to jump in.
Trial attorneys are definitely a creature of habit. What's it been like? Transitioning to you were probably doing 2 or 3 trials a year, at least, I would assume. And now, now it's, nothing. What's it been like for the past year trying to move cases? And
Christa became a TV celebrity.
Yeah, that's true.
Now I'm jealous. I'm jealous.
I know for us it was difficult, because there's not really that end expiration date on a case. There's no trial date.
I don't know, and maybe what I'm about to say may sound kind of unfair, but I did not see the massive slowdown with a lot of cases that a lot of other people did. Basically, the cases that we had kind of fell into 3 categories. We had the brand new cases that just needed to be worked up anyway. We had the big, massive cases that we knew were going to have to be tried. And then we had this middle tier of cases, which were, your moderate sort of exposure cases that still moved. From a pure financial standpoint, 2020 was better for my firm than 2019. And 2021, first 4.5 months, I've already made more money in 2021 than I did in 2020. So, and I know that may sound odd. We just sort of found a way. We found the cases that we knew where we had to put the pressure on, and the cases that we knew that needed to be tried didn't get backburnered, so to speak, but it's like no expert costs. Do not spend money on these cases right now.
I was going to say is I looked at our bottom line for the Simon Law Group, pretty big firm, and we had trials. We're a trial law firm, but we were actually more profitable because we didn't have all of these costs. And it makes you step back and look. We shed office space. We don't need all this office space. We can just join a membership organization like Justice HQ and have access to office space when our staff members need to. But that was a big expense, and that's a big expense a lot of firms have. And like mediation companies, how are these mediation companies going to survive if everyone wants to be on Zoom? What's going to happen to that office space? Christa, where's your office space right now?
We have the same office space. It's by LAX on Century Boulevard. We've got 6 exterior officers, 1 interior office, and 4 cubes. And John is the only one going in every day.
Yeah.
And right now, I actually have a call with a broker next week. We're trying to either sublet or give back or get out of in some way, shape, or form our space and get into something dramatically smaller. Because John is someone who needs to go into an office every day. That's just who he is. And so maybe find some place that's like half the size we have now, that we just have. So when we're in trial or whatever, if we're not going to Justice HQ, we can go in, to our office and work together. But I don't see ever filling that space up. I realized that we were overstaffed before COVID. And we are getting a lot more work done, a lot more efficiently with less people now.
And people in Puerto Rico. Yeah, exactly. Oh, one person. I was thinking about Ramey Law might need an office in Puerto Rico because she's licensed. They're senior paralegal, but she's licensed in Puerto Rico. So I'm thinking business opportunity. You can look at real estate prices in Puerto Rico too, and maybe you have a little conglomerate over in San Juan, Old Town San Juan.
You could have a Justice HQ down there too.
So what does compared to 5 years ago, or I mean even just before COVID, what did your day-to-day look like, and because I know we were speaking before we came on, and you made a comment kind of jokingly but not really that women were already prepared for this sort of thing. Yeah. Can you tell us? Can you go over what you told me before we joined the call?
Yeah. So I realized something Dan said struck with me. It's like there's these moments you just don't want to miss. And you're trying to figure out ways to work smarter, not harder, right? You want to be with your family and not miss out on any of those opportunities. And I would just find a way. And if it meant that I was, doing discovery in my bed at, a pajama lawyer at 11 o'clock at night in order to have those opportunities with my children, I wasn't going to miss them. And so plus I'm also Gen X. So so we were the original latchkey kids. So I think between being a woman and being like this loner latchkey kid growing up, I was like, I can work from home. I'm good. I think that, a lot of women, I also mentioned my associate Skylar had a baby pre-COVID. She just had a baby during COVID as well. And she's just so effective at home. And a lot of my young mothers that work for me, they're just as effective working from home. And I think that there's something that is distracting them when they're in the office more than the baby being a distraction at home. So I think that it just works. I was, it's a natural for me. I'm good with it.
What about you, Dan? How's your office space going? What are you guys going to do?
So yeah, we got into a new space right before COVID. It's not terrible. I mean, it's a bit of a pricey storage unit right now, storing a lot of boxes and desks, but it hasn't been too terrible. We're kind of on the same page as Christa is eventually I see us maybe, subletting two of these offices out. We've got a great conference room. So, we're going to keep it because it's not ridiculously expensive. And, even if I only use it for focus groups once a week, it's going to be fine. But no, I'm 95% home. I want to be there hanging out with my kids, and you find a different way. Like I'll get up early in the morning, do 2 or 3 hours with no distractions, make breakfast, go on a bike ride, go surf, do whatever with the kids. And then I can still be, quote, at my desk, 9 o'clock, doing 9 to 3 and 9 to 4, have dinner with my kids every night, have lunch with my kids and my wife every day. So, it's huge. And yeah, I'm not that commute. I think we were talking about earlier. It's like the lack of commute. I think getting in my car and driving for 45 minutes each direction might be okay sometimes, but it's like, okay, I've just killed an hour and a half.
I had to drive somewhere the other day, and I was just so angry at traffic. And that used to be every day, and now it was like, man, I can't believe we did this. I
texted So I texted my wife yesterday because I had to go. So I'm in Santa Cruz. We used to live in San Jose, but San Jose is the big city compared to Santa Cruz. And I had to take my daughter over there to get new glasses. And I texted my wife at lunch and I said, I'm turning into my father. She's like, what do you mean? It's like, I cannot stand the fast fucking drivers on the freeway in San Jose, which is exactly what my dad complains about whenever he flies out here to visit me. So I'm like, great. Now what's going to start happening is I'm going to start buying caffeine-free Diet Cokes, and then I'm totally fucked.
So what if you had to tell, I mean, it could, because there's now people that are coming out of law school it's going to be out of COVID. They're going to be, the world's probably not going to go back to the way it was, but there's going to be some shift backwards to being in the office all the time.
You just said it's a shift backwards.
Yeah.
We don't want to shift backwards anymore.
So ideally, what should, you have a young attorney who's maybe just started practicing when COVID hit, or who is still in law school. What should the new lawyer life look like? I know you talked about being home as much as you can and being efficient. Ideally, what should they look forward to? How should they, structure their life as a new lawyer in this generation?
Y'all have hired new lawyers since that just passed the bar. You should be asking yourselves that. I haven't done it yet. I was talking to one of your associates, Taylor, and she was telling me that, she never mentioned office, and that's just crazy. But, she's a really smart, bright, exceptional person. I don't know I think that training young lawyers is going to be a little bit more difficult from our perspective as business owners. The time that you used to spend with someone like in a room is going to be a little bit different. Being in a room with someone that I don't know now kind of grosses me out.
Yeah.
Being in a room with somebody that I know kind of grosses me out.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I don't know how. I mean, we had a new paralegal orientation yesterday, and we were training paralegals on video, but I don't know how to train new attorneys now. I mean, Taylor works with me, and she's great. I mean, we have team meetings. She sits in on mediations, depositions, but it is different. I mean, I don't know how you can replace shadowing, a seasoned attorney and learning under them. I don't know that you can replace it.
I think it will. I mean, I remember when I was a young lawyer, I worked at a big plaintiff's firm, Race, Klein and Marius, and Bob Steinberg, who's a legend, who just passed away recently, actually, was in the office next to mine. And that had a couple of perks. One, his daughter was married to the Edge. So every now and then, Bono and the Edge would walk by my office and peek in and say, hey. But he was also just brilliant. And I would be able to go in there and talk to him and ask him about things and that experience of having someone who literally was a legend in our sphere as a trial lawyer. He tried the first asbestos case west of the Mississippi for a 7-figure verdict. He was exceptional. And you're not going to get that experience if you're working from home. I mean, your brother Bob is exceptional, and young lawyers need to be able to sit with him and talk with him that work for you. So y'all have to figure out ways to do that, So
those conferences that I used to dread going to are now going to be the best case scenarios to learn. Like I was at the HQ location downtown, just talking to Ryan Conger about like an employee issue and a crossover workers' comp case, and I figured something out I never would have thought of just sitting in a room with him talking. And that's one thing that's going to be lacking now, but that's something we got to think of. Like, Dan, what case, you said you don't use a case management system, but Litify is what CZ&R uses. So how is your interaction with Litify versus what you use for your own personal team for your farm?
You're going to laugh. Basically, whenever I get a case that I need to use Litify, I sit down with the handling paralegal at the CZR main. I say, get all this stuff in Dropbox because I'm not using Litify. I just don't. I mean, and maybe that's just, but for me, there's certain things I know I'm good at and there's certain things I know I'm not good at, and trying to figure out how to use a case management system is not one of those things. So I'm like, get it in a format that I can just look at it. And, sort of spinning off what we've all just kind of talked about, I think that we're going to see, there's going to be more of these trial seminars. I didn't get to Cabo last weekend because candidly, I can't stand Cabo. But, Dordick had his thing down there, which was a raving success from what everybody's told me. And, those are the things that are going to happen, because I think you're going to miss out on a lot of this stuff. But one thing, just to kind of go back, what I was thinking about, that it would be key advice that I would give young lawyers. It's the same advice I got before I went to college. And that was, go to a place that you want to be first, and then figure out what you want to study later. And I see that as sort of the same thing here, is figure out where you want to be physically, and everything else will kind of fall into place. Like, for example, we're all working from home right now. Yeah, is that going to create issues with us sitting in and getting the mentorship? Of course it will, but we'll figure out a way to do that. If we're comfortable in our home base first, I think that's going to take away some of this extra stress. Like we've all talked about, we hate getting in cars to go commute. It makes us happier. I feel like I'm more productive and I'm working less hours. So that may be the starting point now. We're going to have to sort of use that hub and spoke. It's like, now you got to get your hub first and then spoke out. Whereas before it was your office was the hub, and you were spoking out from there. So I think we're going to have to kind of shift that a little bit. But yeah, there's going to be more seminars. We're going to see Body Graw, we're going to see Trial by Human, we're going to do Trial Lawyers for Justice, Dordick Trial College, CALA, all these things that, there's going to be more of these startup seminars, because that's where we're going to get more of this in-person mentorship. And I think that's where it's going to shift a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons that we, without knowing it, started JHQ, so people had a place to come, and if they were on their own, they had people to bounce ideas off of. And we formed it before COVID, but it seemed like it made a good transition because now people have a resource. So we are wrapping up soon. Is there anything else?
So I just want to talk like actual solutions that people use. I know most everyone uses either Office 365 for their email solution, which is Outlook, or Google, or Google-based Gmail. You guys use one of those too? Dan, I think you mentioned Google Drive. Do you use Google for your email, or do you use Outlook?
Yeah, so we run everything through Macs. So our Mac email, our emails that come through our Mac-based systems are a Gmail-based system. So I've got my own personal Gmail account, the old typical @gmail.com, but then my law firm email addresses, although they've got the firm tagline in them, have their foundation on a Google-based system.
I use Hotmail.
I'm actually think I'm going to throw back to AOL. Actually, that's
You got mail. I use 365.
So that's, I was going
better.
to say about 365 is like, that's a subscription based. It's not very expensive. You have to pay per user, but that comes with Microsoft Teams, and Microsoft Teams has a lot of great features that when we hit COVID, I was like, man, Teams has the internal chatter, like internal messaging for each team, each person. It's your video conferencing solution for everything. SharePoint OneDrive is basically Dropbox, which is a competitor, but you already are paying for it.
You can store your files, can live in Teams. So if you have Teams files that you want to keep in there, So
that's a good.
LA Superior Court is going to be Teams. Oh. If you're going to make an appearance by video to any LA courthouse, it's going to be by Teams. I think that's San Diego as well.
Which gets frustrating because up here everything's Zoom. San Francisco, Santa Cruz, Santa Clara, it's all Zoom.
Well, the lawyer life is hiring someone in your office that can figure out and communicate to every different courthouse and what system they're going to use, because they're not all going to communicate and do things the same way.
Of course not. There's certain counties up here where they're still requiring wet signatures on documents. It's like, okay, your little county that's got 10,000 people in it, I get it. Like 8 people in your county had COVID. Okay, yeah, you can be in person, but for us, Bay Area and Southern California, we had a case up, I think it's either Calaveras or Amador. They're like, you need to file with a wet signature.
Yeah,
what?
Put your star seal on the envelope and have your crow fly it over to the
my carrier pigeon.
We're going to be wrapping this up, but I just want everyone just think of one thing, one software tool that you've used that's increased productivity that you can't do without. And we can't talk about Zoom. Zoom's off the table because that's the easy out. What's one thing that you guys have been using now in your practice or even your personal life that now it's your go-to app on your phone? What about you, Brandon?
Well, one app that I actually was using that wasn't using well enough until COVID hit was Slack, because we have a Slack channels that live in JHQ. If I have a question about a case, I know I can go to people through Slack that already, I can hashtag things and I can ask questions and I can at people. And it's much quicker and more efficient way to get answers from people that you actually know what they're doing. So I use Slack a lot, specifically with JHQ.
What about you, Christa? What are you using?
Well, kind of going back to Office 365, there's this thing that comes through called Cortana, and it kind of finds all your emails that you haven't really responded to yet. And I try to schedule, and it has you schedule like focus time, and it has you schedule break time. And I've been doing that recently, and I'm like, hey, this is kind of good. It's my time to walk the dog, and it's kind of nice to have that, because sometimes emails just drop off your radar. And I've never recognized that feature before. I think it might actually be a new one on Microsoft Teams since COVID, because I never had, or Microsoft Outlook, that I never noticed before. So it's kind of my new favorite tool that I've discovered during COVID, I guess. But I'm with you, Brandon, on Slack.
How about Dan? What do you got?
Yeah, see, I feel like the dinosaur here, because I just am not like, I don't have a lot of short. I mean, I got to cheat with Brandon. That's like, I like Slack. I mean, it's kind of nice because I'll be in my meetings with my team, and we'll have a question that'll pop up. And yeah, I'm not a listserv guy. I mean, I get the emails every once in a while, Trial by Human, Trial School, all these different ones, but Slack's my big one. But yeah, my favorite app right now is Surfline, because I got to check the waves every morning. So, but no, I like, Christa, what you brought up. Because my emails fall through so much. Yeah. So, but yeah, Slack's been great, because we utilize it with JHQ, but we also, Trial by Human, we have a Slack channel as well that we utilize. And so, yeah, you just can pop it on, and usually at least one or two people will give you some type of answer. Which helps.
I was noticing, Dan, is that I feel like sometimes when I used to post on Cal Listserv, I get questions like, why'd you take that case? Instead of an actual answer.
Right, exactly.
And with Slack, with JHQ Slack, I think it's because it's such a smaller group that really kind of cares about people's success. You get a little bit different.
It's productive, not negative. I can remember I posted one thing at one point. It's like, oh, you should have referred that case to me. What? That was not the point. Okay, Bob Simon, that wasn't the point.
I handle all kinds of spy cases.
What I've been using the most is Apple HomeKit, just Apple to control my house. I'm at home. I got 4 kids. It's nice to see what they're all doing throughout the rooms in the house to make sure that they're cool and safe while I'm just working away in our little home office. Jenny and I actually work. We had a his and hers closet, and his closet is our office. And we have our computer little room in our house because it's mostly soundproof, but we do need to keep an eye on them. So let's sign her off, Brandon.
Yeah, we get the signal to wrap up. So thanks so much, Dan and Christa. Hopefully next time we do this, it's in person. I know Zoom's efficient, but it's always nice having Christa around when you have your little free time and you have a bar behind you, which we do here. So next time we'll do it in person. Thanks so much, guys. I appreciate you taking the time out to do this. And
remember, there's no sleep until justice.
Yeah, you can't see this. Okay, you can't see this.
I can. Yeah, it's perfect.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thank you, guys. Good seeing y'all.
So come on, and call on motion for me. You gotta check your sites now. Come on, baby. Scroll up, scroll down. I think this law is sound. Now that we have finished, let's file and serve now. Good thing you called.